I know only a handful of you in the room today are Geminis, the perfecters of Jekyll and Hyde. Let me just say that again, the perfecters of Jekyll and Hyde personalities. But I imagine that we are all familiar with our own Jekyll and Hyde. That is, when our worst side and when our best side arrives to the scene. Think about this for a moment. What situations, experiences, people, when have you recently been when has your best side been brought out, and when has your worst? This month, as we have just been talking about, we've been hearing the profound wisdom the Apostle Paul espouses to the new church start in Corinth as they encounter challenges. And in chapter 11, which comes right before our reading today, so I feel like our reading today is a response to this, Paul says, I'm getting the picture that when you meet together, it brings out your worst side instead of your best. And in his mind, Paul knew from this far-off location, he could vividly picture what life was like for the Corinthians at their best and at their worst. He had, after all, spent 1.5 years with this community, down in the trenches, helping them to learn the ways of Jesus and to experience the love of God, something that had been so new and so powerful and so transformative for them. The Corinthians were a diverse bunch. They had different beliefs, different ethnicities and ancestors. They were of different ages and social class. But Paul had led them to experience in their bodies the beauty and the power that comes when God sees you and loves you with no preferential treatment for one way or another. Paul helped them to open their hearts, and they experienced life when the Spirit was active and empowering. And Paul had felt confident that their commitment to Christian community was flourishing and that this kind of loving, forgiving, empowering community was something they were excited to continue to live and experience together. So he went on his way. He went on his way to plant and encourage the development of other Christian communities. And little by little, the Corinthians started to forget the power of their experiences and the important contributions that each member has for the community as a whole. And the body began to fall apart. All the little bodies of the people of Corinth and the big community body. And Paul started to hear about this. He got letters from the people of Corinth complaining. They were arguing over who was the leader, who the people should follow. They argued over who had the most and the best gifts to lead the community. And division ensued as people took sides, they found allies, they clamored for power. It may be disappointing to hear this, but it comes at no surprise, really. Being part of a community in transition is difficult. Change is something that each one of us here can easily bring out our worst side. When we're going through change, we often don't feel in control. We are pushed to do things that feel uncomfortable. We might feel afraid. We and all our efforts of the past might feel diminished. We jump to judgment. So the compassionate, pastoral, and profound Paul reminds the Corinthians that change can also bring out our best side. In the section of the letter we read today, Paul says, each person is given something to do that shows who God is. Each person is given something to do that shows who God is. Do you believe that this is in us? That this is in us from birth? Being gifted is mysteriously knit into our being before birth, as we are being shaped and formed in the womb. The Spirit is already active in our spirits and in our souls. And so bringing gifts to the table is something that God calls us to every day throughout life. Celebrating the gifts of every person is our calling. The gifts of every person, when they're alive and thriving, that's when we manifest God's call to community. Your body has experienced it. This body here has experienced it. And yet, too often, we don't see the gift. Instead, we see difference. We can't offer the gift. We feel judgment. We can't nurture the gift because we don't know it's a gift. The translation that we often hear for the term spiritual gifts in our passage today can be misleading. Spiritual gifts. It kind of sounds like there's only a few gifts out there and it's only for a few people. But it might be better translated as the gifts which the Spirit offers. And what the Spirit offers, what the Spirit activates, is a fully alive human being. The little bodies and the big body. I wanted to share a story that a student I'll call Alan told me that has forever changed my understanding of gifts. One day, Alan was talking about a research project with his professor and happened to mention that he was gay. Alan was shocked by his professor's response. "It's a gift," she said. "I never would have thought of that as a possible reply," said Alan. Yet immediately I knew exactly what she meant. Because I was different. I would see things differently than so many others. And that would be valuable to me in ways that I would only discover over time. I don't think it's too much to say that her words changed how I looked at my life. What would it look like if we see differences of all shapes and sizes and we say, it's a gift? Consider the everyday ways that you describe yourself. The things that tend to be qualifiers, perhaps, when you initially meet somebody. I'm left-handed. I'm a visual person. I'm widowed. I'm an introvert. I'm discerning my career path. How would you feel different if I said to you, it's a gift? You are left-handed. It's a gift. You are an introvert. It's a gift. You are discerning your career path. It's a gift. You don't have children. It's a gift. You have children. It's a gift. Something changes. Our imagination opens. Our thinking is forward and positive. Our views are broadened. Our hearts skip a beat. But when we are so used to naming our faults, listening to negative feedback, comparing ourselves with others, competing for jobs, competing for awards or for recognition, we could use a little reminding. The Spirit offers gifts everywhere. And as Paul said to the Corinthians, you are not lacking in gifts unless you are looking just at your own gifts. You, the people of Corinth, are not lacking in gifts. The gifts of the Spirit are abundant and plentiful in Corinth. You may need to refocus to break open what we want to see, what we are used to seeing, what we have always seen, both inside ourselves and all around ourselves. So the next time you feel the worst part of you arriving to the scene, try to twist your lens just a little bit and refocus. Be on the lookout for the gifts lived in our stories, woven deeply into our bodies, just waiting to be activated. All God's gifts are right in front of us, beside us, inside us. When the Spirit activates the gifts, the people can say, Amen.